What's good? What's good, man?
How you doing? How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Beautiful day up out here in Denver.
Hey, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. So, just wanted to get this interview started off by introducing yourself. What's your team, and what do you expect them to do going in the next season?
All right. Well, first off, appreciate you joining me up onto the panel. And for everybody, as you know, it is your notorious host of the Snake Sports Talk Show, Jake the Snake Silva here. Um, Basically cover all sports, all in general on my regular show. But my favorite team that I've been a fan of since I was 7 years old has been the once San Diego Chargers, now the LA Chargers. So I've been around during those hard times, but I've loved them ever since and always have stuck to my colors. But um, I think this season, because this year hiring Jim Harbaugh is going to be really important for the Chargers because this is complete an entire culture change. Since the time they left San Diego to go to Los Angeles, they felt like the redheaded stepchildren of the NFL, and
Mm.
especially when they're sharing the stadium with the LA Rams and such. They haven't been able to truthfully build their culture. I felt like Dean Spanos kind of stripped them of that since
Hmm.
leaving San Diego. But to me, I think Jim Harbaugh really does fit the bill. A former Charger quarterback and now being the head coach of this team and coming off of a national championship with his alma mater at Michigan. Um, I think this is going to be a great season for him. I don't know if they'll be like great out of the gate. They're certainly going to be building through the trenches, but I think they'll be good enough that they could be able to compete within their division and at the same time compete for a wild card spot as well.
I hear exactly what you're saying on that one. And speaking of that, how did you feel when they moved from San Diego to LA?
Oh, I was heartbroken. The fact that, like, I mean, you go to vacation in San Diego, man. I mean, you can't beat that. I'm out there in the beaches all day, like around Pacific and Pismo Beach. But at the same
Hmm.
time, it was really heartbreaking. I mean, everybody in San Diego, they are very diehard when it comes to their teams, whether it was the Chargers or the Padres. They are invested in their team. And I think what happened, like throughout the course of it, is the entire discussion, it was behind Dean Spanos and it was also behind the city council. The problem of it was is he ended up going to the wrong people, which was, I believe it was, the county side of things rather than go to the actual city council, and that's what forced a lot of the move. Because even the city came out and said we would have kept the Chargers, we would have kept them there in San Diego, but apparently, Dean had other plans and then decided to move to Los Angeles, wherever the new money was growing. But I was heartbroken. But like I said, I've always said it to many diehard Charger fans. When the day that the Chargers win their first ever Super Bowl in that organization, it will not be for the city of Los Angeles. It'll be for the city of San Diego and every single diehard fan that has rode with us since day one.
I like that. I genuinely like that. So, what are you thinking about your quarterback so far? And what did you think about the draft?
Shoot, I love my quarterback, man. I mean, the fact that, the Chargers have had a long history of drafting like future Hall of Fame quarterbacks from Dan Fouts to Drew Brees to Philip Rivers. And now here we are, starting to start him with Justin Herbert. I mean, the guy's absolutely ridiculous. Like I've said this, I think, you know, our batch of quarterbacks that we were so used to watching between Philip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, like, Big Ben. We used to love watching that era of football with those quarterbacks. And I feel like now we have a new breed, we have a new batch of quarterbacks, and it's like the new era. And so to me, I almost feel like Justin Herbert is kind of setting himself up for success. Similarly, like what happened with Peyton Manning in his early days in Indianapolis. I mean, he had Jim Mora before he ended up getting Tony Dungy, and then the rest is history from there.
Hmm.
So, Herbert, he had two coordinating coaches between Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley until he finally got Jim Harbaugh that's capable of winning big games. So I feel like, I mean, ultimately, I love my quarterback. I think he's, like he's set for success. Um, but I think I thought this draft was great, It was a great first year draft for Joe Ortiz and for Jim Harbaugh. Um, they absolutely set their imprints by the start, and that was they want to play physical football. They want to start winning the games in the trenches, and they wanted to basically run the football and give Justin Herbert an efficient run game, so that way they're not completely reliant on his arm, to where defenses can set up to where it's more of an obvious play for them. So you sprinkle in a great run game, you sprinkle in a few screen plays, but at the same time, you're setting up for Justin Herbert when that opportunity comes in. He's going to be capable of torching secondaries with that deep ball accuracy that he throws.
There is a lot of things Justin Herbert can provide to a team, and a lot of people tend to look over the fact that Justin Herbert, even though he has some setbacks, he has provided a lot more than what he can do. So,
Right.
what are you thinking of Lad McConkey and Joe Alt being new additions to your team?
So I mean, Joe Alt, when I was not surprised by that pick, and I know a lot of Charger fans wanted an offensive playmaker, whether it was going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or even Brock Bowers at that point. I know they were kind of screaming for it, but they were kind of seeing what other teams were what they were going to do, because the whole JJ McCarthy hype deal. If they were going to get a deal done that was, that was perfect to trade with, that was fair, it would have been the Minnesota Vikings. But because that wasn't been the case, they go and take I'd say by far the best offensive lineman in that entirety of the draft in Joe Alt. I mean, the guy's huge. He's 6'9", 321 pounds of force, and that's a guy that you can solidify the right side of the tackle position, which is what the Chargers had kind of lacked all from, last season with injuries. But I think you could transition him from left tackle, he's played for so long, to the right side. And now you've got two legitimate tackles between Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt that is going to guarantee that it's not going to be easy to penetrate that offensive line when you're talking about Max Crosby or Chris Jones or any great pass rushers in this league. They're not going to make it that easy. So I thought that was a great pick by the Chargers, and also helps out too with establishing open holes for the run game for Josh Dobbins or J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and multiple runners. And then I think the Lad McConkey pick, dude. I mean, I watched videos of him, and what's funny is if you couldn't get Brock Bowers, you were gonna get like his secondary guy, which was Lad McConkey. And the fact that the guy has great separation, runs great routes, and at the same time, like I think he's honestly going to be he has similarities to Cooper Kupp and Wes Welker as far as getting himself in open spaces where people can't seem to like really play in the backfield. But at the same time, I think he's got great hands as well. And somebody that I think Justin Herbert's going to find a new relationship that he's going to build with this receiving core.
I really like that answer. That's really knowledgeable. And so, for from 2023 to 2024, your starting offense, what did you think of it, and how did you think the changes from 2023 to 2024 is going to look like?
So, I mean, this was ultimately the day was going to come where we were going to eventually have to rip the band-aid off. I know it was kind of hard and it sucked, but eventually that day was going to come. I was just surprised that it happened, sooner than what I anticipated. But I think, the 23 offense that we had with Austin Eckler, as you know, great pass catching running back. The talks of it was because he was the one that basically started the whole like running back outreach group, basically saying that, running backs aren't paid what they're deserved. And so starting that outreach. And so by that point, you know, Austin Eckler, he kind of got a little bit distracted with himself and to where like he wasn't quite on his A game. Keenan Allen, I think by far, even with the injuries, man, like he's still produced at a high level. I just love the fact there is so much like disrespect and hate for the dude, but it's like this guy runs the best routes, arguably the best route runner in the league, And he ultimately has got great hands that when you need a first down or you need a score, the guy is more than capable. Mike Williams getting hurt again, out for the season, was another heartbreaker. And I think that was kind of the band aid that needed to be ripped off for the Chargers at the end of it because he was just such a damn good player coming out of Clemson, but the injuries just started decimating really badly. It was more of a what could have been type player had it not been for just the injuries. And Gerald Everett, you needed a productive tight end. Um, I still think that the Chargers need to address that tight end position at some point because they haven't been able to solidify it since Antonio Gates retired. So the whole change of this offense, decimated with injuries, but then at the same time, eventually these contracts were going to need to be done. So they knew they were never going to give Austin Eckler a third contract. Usually that's kind of the norm with running backs. It's a kind of a dice roll to give them a third contract. Two contracts is usually the bare minimum. But Keenan Allen, I mean, and Mike Williams getting released, saved 20 million in the cap. Gerald Everett testing the market. We knew we weren't going to bring him back, but the one thing that really surprised me was Keenan Allen getting traded to the Chicago Bears. I knew we were going to come there, but I didn't think it was going to happen sooner. But apparently, the talks of it was they asked him, if he was willing to take a pay cut. But the problem of it was he was coming off of a great season, and he basically said, "No, I know what my value is. I'm not going to lower myself down."
That
So
is true.
at that point, and Joe Ortiz knows this. He knew what kind of player he was trading away. That's why people were freaking out. But he's like, I know what he is. So at that point, trading him to Chicago, I think he's only got solid like 2 more years left until he's done and retired.
Hmm.
But it was hard because the fact that the guy's broken almost every single record by a Charger receiver like Lance Allworth and Antonio Gates and many, many others in this organization, he will clearly be a Chargers Ring of Honor Hall of Famer for sure. But
Yes, 100%.
I'd say he definitely will be a future Hall of Famer in the next few years. But now looking into this new offense, the point of it is, this team lacked self awareness. It also lacked physicality and it lacked some attitude in this building. And I think a lot of that was because they were so analytically driven that there was no manalytics that was put on this team. Like, look, regardless of what your stats have been showing me, show me you're capable of winning those big games because that's the big knock everybody has on Justin Herbert. They're all like, well, Justin Herbert can't win the big game. He can't do this. How do you know if he's got a coach that's constantly holding him back? And at the same time, they're putting him in positions where the defense was ranked 30th in the league, 27th, and 26th. That's not good enough. So he's
Right.
putting up the points to put him in positions to win, but the defense is lacking to secure those leads. So, and if you think about it, look at how many losses that the Chargers have had that were one score or less. That's
Man,
got to
a lot of
change.
people, a lot of people tend to not realize that defense plays a lot of factors into a game, and when it comes down to a defensive stop that's needed to be had to change the tide of a game or change the momentum, is really gonna make or break a team's momentum. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. And so, like, I mean, you had injuries from Derwin James, you had injuries from Joey Bosa. The only one that really like stood out in 2 years that he's been in this Chargers organization, which I'm very glad that he stayed, is Khalil Mack. He's played all 17 games with this team in 2 years and coming off of a 16 and a half career high sack record in his career. The dude's a dog and the dude's a beast. And he's doing this at 33 years old, where Joey Bosa is 29. So I'd say the old, like, you know what they say when you teach an old dog new tricks at the same
Hmm.
time? That dude literally balled out the 29-year-old. So that's where Joey Bosa needs to get on the same page. And I'm like really glad. I was surprised Joey Bosa took a restructure. I thought he was honestly going to be one that was going to be selfish, the one that like he doesn't want to run away with his like he wants to run away with his money. I would have been like, then go trade him. Go and play with your brother in San Francisco if that's the case. But instead, I think what may have been said, Jim Harbaugh laid it down to him very straight, and I think he bought into it. I mean, we'll never know what happened behind closed doors, but that's just kind of my thought. But but in the end, this new offense, it's not as sexy as a lot of people tend to kind of think when you look at like Miami or Philadelphia or a lot of those offenses. But
Right.
this is an offense that's going to be capable of scoring 25 plus points. But at the same time, they're going to build physicality, they're going to build dog mentality, and they're going to win in the trenches. And at the very least, flip the script that they have been writing for years and years, which is they're going to turn those losses from 7 points or less, and they're going to turn those into W's. And I think that's exactly with what Jim Harbaugh has been instilling since his time in Michigan. I mean, you've seen those close games Michigan's been in.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
and I think that's where he's going to make that initial turnaround for the Chargers to trend them in the right direction.
Hey, look, to the people up into the comments, I see all of y'all. Thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for the likes, shares, follows, and thank y'all especially for the gifts. I don't be asking people to gift as much because I don't see a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of fortunate people out here that can, come up onto this app and give people. And with me, I don't expect gifts, but I genuinely appreciate all the gifts that I get. Thank y'all for real. So
Absolutely.
let's continue this conversation. Let's run these likes up and let's hit the For You page. Thank y'all for the follows, shares. And when this interview gets done and over with, I'll start inviting people. But for this next question, this is a quote that I found from the Chargers GM. And what do you think about it? It says, to be able to walk in with Justin Herbert as your quarterback and Jim Harbaugh as your head coach is fantastic. What do you think about that?
I mean, think about it this way. It's kind of like what we look at when it's like, oh, could you imagine walking into a building when you've got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback and Andy Reid as your head coach? I mean, who wouldn't want to play with that, right? So,
Right.
like, you get a guy that has had success in both in college and in the NFL in his career. And so, like, with San Francisco 49ers. You've seen what he's done in his time in Stanford and Michigan. And so like to be a
Hey,
part of
Snake,
that,
you're breaking up a
I
little
think
bit.
is incredible.
Hey, Snake, you're breaking up a little bit.
I want
Gonna give it a little second to come back in, but other than that, I really feel like the Chargers, with everything that they brought to the table, as far as draft and free agency, I feel like they done did a lot of things that they can bring to the AFC. What is it? The AFC West. They have a lot of things that they can provide,
Yep,
and if
AFC
they
West.
can
Yep.
get the ball rolling with everything that they got offensively, and if they can get somewhat, I wouldn't say better pieces on defense because y'all have a pretty okay defense as of right now. I just feel like if y'all add like one to maybe two pieces, that would genuinely boost your defensive rate. I would think more.
Well, I think what's huge about that is that the fact that they have been able to keep both their pass rushers, which was incredible because they were able to take a restructured contract. So you keep those two there. You've got Thule, who basically was the second best rookie in the rookie class last season, where he had 10.5 sacks, and he's starting to show like his stardom as well in that defense. And then you add in guys like Christian Fulton, you added in Tarheeb Still, and you added in Cam Hart. Like that secondary got burnt all last season. And so like that's what's great that they address the corner position because Asante Samuel Jr. can't do everything by himself. You
Right.
got to have somebody that's going to be great next to him that plays the same man-to-man coverage ball, but then have somebody that's going to be a little more of a spotter that's going to be out there in like cover ones, cover twos, even cover threes, and that's going to basically be the floater for when the football is basically thrown in the air. Because when it's in the air, you got to go and get it. And so I think that was great. They addressed the secondary, the most important spot that got killed all last season. The other thing that I loved was I loved the Junior Colson pick. The fact that they finally, in years, the Chargers finally got a competent linebacker that can spot both the midfield and also can be that elite tackler, whether he's getting to the quarterback or he's getting to the running back. So, like, that because the midfield has been torched by the Chargers multiple times when they're playing Kansas City against Travis Kelsey. They at one point played with Darren Waller and now with Michael Mayer of the Raiders, and now you've got Brock Bowers there. So you have to shut down that midfield because a lot of teams are utilizing, well, if I can't get my targets that are up in the deep field, I might as well use my tight end that I trust that's going to burn them in the middle of the field. That now is not going to be easy to throw to. So at this point, I think they put together a great cast that builds a lot of physicality, that builds a lot more of that winning mentality because finally now here's what's funny about it is now analysts and sports guys like you and I, we've always been asking, what if Justin Herbert had a competent coach next to him? Now we finally have one, and we'll see exactly how that all turns up because when you watch play by play, you watch situational plays, you're going to notice the difference. You're going to know the difference of how they shift momentum, how they basically go and they strike and attack, whether it's second, thirds, or fourth down conversions, and how they, their philosophy of scoring points and then gaining momentum to keep possession on their side. So you're going to see a lot of that because I just think, Anthony Lynn, I wouldn't say he was a terrible coach. I think it was kind of unfortunate, but again, the deal had to be done. But I was so heartbroken when Shane Steichen left because he was a great offensive coordinator, and you saw what he did in Philadelphia and what he's going to do with the Indianapolis Colts when Anthony Richardson comes back. The
Right.
guy's a rock star, man, and the fact that like when that happened, Shane Steichen made the Chargers offense seventh in the league. So they were putting up points on his rookie year with a bad O line, with injuries decimated. You knew he was more than capable of giving you a backup plan. Once you left that and you get Brandon Staley and they hired Joe Lombardi, I hated the hire because it's like, how are we shifting from a seventh ranked offense to a 21st ranked offense? What are we doing? We're starting to trend backwards to where you're making Justin Herbert much more conservative um, than what he should be. He clearly can throw, he clearly can give you those passes, and he can move the team downfield. So when you're doing these screen passes, out routes, and stuff that like it worked for Drew Brees in New Orleans, this ain't Drew Brees here. Like this is a guy that's more than capable of handling his own ground. You have to unleash him. So that was kind of the problem with it with Joe Lombardi. And by the time they got Kellen Moore, I mean, it was little too late at that point. We never really got to see the best of Kellen Moore, so I wish him the best in Philadelphia. And so, but I think you really are going to see the imprints from here. And for people that think Greg Roman is going to take the pass away from Justin Herbert, no, he's not. He's not going to do that. He's trying to instill a great run game so that they're not Justin Herbert reliant. But Jim Harbaugh knows this as a former quarterback. You got somebody with that much talent, you're not going to strip him away of the pass. You're going to unleash him, but you're going to unleash him the right way that he was meant to be used.
100%. I agree with you on that one. So, like I was asking earlier about the draft from pick number 5 to pick number 253, what did you think about it? And to address the elephant in the room, what do you think Brendan Rice is going to do?
So my thought with Brandon Rice, I think he's definitely a sleeper throughout, that day three. And the fact that he fell down that low, the Chargers are initially taking a chance on him. I mean, the kid, he's got a lot of work to do, but I think what's going to be great about it is he's going to come around into an environment that's ready to work. I mean, that comes from strength and conditioning. That's going to come from, you're working out with Justin Herbert and that rest of that wide receiver group. And you've got, a guy like Lad McConkey in that, rookie class that you're going to work alongside with who's almost just as similar of size, but is going to help you with more of just, the pass catching ability, probably strengthen a little more of the route run. But there's going to be a collective help with everybody in training camp and in OTAs. I think Brendan Rice, you're taking a chance on him. He's going to be overcoming a lot of adversities. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, the fact that he had to lay down to rest one of his closest friends, and then people basically passed on him. But the Chargers looked and said, look, our condolences to your family and friends for your loss. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be truthfully a great story for you to have to go through the trenches like that, but then rise up basically being a diamond in the rough. I think that's basically what they're going to see with Brendan Rice. And again, you're around a Hall of Fame dad, and Jerry Rice. He'll teach you a thing or two. And that's kind of the nice thing as well with having Brendan Rice and getting some extra speed, extra, I'd say extra strength as well in that receiving core. But then even you just recently get DJ Chark, a veteran receiver that really helps to bring the veteran presence still for this receiving core. So I think there is going to be a chance. I don't think he'll be great out the gate, but you can work with him. You can sharpen him up. Like I've always said, you chisel yourself until you are an absolute masterpiece. So I
Yes.
think that's what I look at with Brandon Rice.
Hey, to everybody that's up over here liking, sharing, following, thank y'all so much. And to the gifts, we appreciate the gifts so much. Thank y'all for boosting the live. Thank y'all for liking the live, sharing the live. And I see everybody's request trying to come up. I'm gonna start inviting people after this interview gets wrapped up. It's gonna be wrapped up in a few minutes, but other than that, thank y'all for everything. Thank y'all for stopping by, coming through, and supporting the lot. But my last question to you is, what do you think about Joe Alt, and why do you think people are saying that the Chargers somewhat reached on him?
If you haven't seen this dude and his tapes at Notre Dame, you have no idea what you're missing on. Joe Alt, I mean, the guy, a bigger body type offensive tackle, and the fact that he's giving you a lot of those big time stops, especially when it comes to opposing pass rushes. This guy, like, you, you know how hard that can possibly be to go against a 6'9", 321-pounder, like against him on the other side. That's not easy, man. That dude will literally like just toss you around. He's basically challenging, saying, "Get past me, get past me." If you get past me one time, like, then okay, I respect you for that. But you ain't getting past me at least at my size, at my capability. That dude is something else. And here's what's funny about it. Um, Joe Alt in his 361 snaps that he played in college, that dude only allowed 5 quarterback pressures and 1 sack. That's it. That's all he ended up letting go in his last year at Notre Dame. You know who else had similarly the numbers with him in his last year in college? That was Rashawn Slater at Northwestern. His last year, over 360 snaps. The dude had 5 pressures, 0 sacks in those 365 snaps. So that just tells me that is completely a shutdown side between both the left and the right. Like Max Crosby, none of those guys are going to get past that. So it'll be quite a challenge for opposing defenses. But I'll tell you what, man, that body build and that kind of strength and capability, and you've got, perfect feet shifting capabilities, that is going to be something else, man. People think that's a reach, but I'll tell you, if that dude does not allow a sack at all in this season, then you've been put on notice. You have been recognized as this dude is going to be something else.
All right, so I'm pretty much out of questions. So, is it anything you want to say to y'all future to your future? Matter of fact, one more.
All right.
I'd actually forgot. I almost forgot.
All right.
Speaking of, I got your future opponents on the board.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about these as the final question.
All right.
Where do you think your record is going to be, and what teams do you think the Chargers are going to beat?
So I think, to me personally, um, the Chargers by far have the easiest schedule. It's not the number one, but they definitely do have an easy schedule on their side. To me personally, I think the prediction record I have for them is potentially going 10-7. I'm not going to rank them. I'm not going to have them win any higher because that would just be by far way over the top expectations for Jim Harbaugh. I think that they're going to start kind of having to get the gears rolling. It might be a little bit rusty at first, but they're going to find their groove. They'll get a streak going. But I think 10-7 is the prediction record. The ceiling is at 11-6, and the floor is by far at 9-8. That would be my prediction with the record. You look at it at home. I have a feeling that they're going to get payback against the Denver Broncos, in my opinion, because the Broncos, they've got a rookie quarterback. They've also got to shift up a few pieces that Sean Payton has in stored. I think they'll beat the Broncos at home. It's a coin flip between Baltimore because it's practically almost the same similar mentality with both those teams. I think they might lose to Baltimore at home, respectfully. Kansas City, um, my thing is I don't think they end up beating Kansas City at home. Cincinnati, they do have a real good chance against the Bengals. I see them beating them at home. Raiders, I see them beating them at home. The Titans, I know for a fact they're going to get that payback back from last season. They'll beat them at home. Derek Carr and the Saints, they kind of know his number. I see them beating the Saints there, and then I see them beating the Bucks. So I think ultimately it may be a 2, 4, 6, 8. I'd say it'd be about a 6-2 record at home, in my opinion, with those two losses between Baltimore and Kansas City. On the road, hard to play in that altitude, but it may be close. But I do see them beating Denver on the road. I do see them potentially beating Cleveland. The last few times playing them, it's been shootouts between the Browns. So that's going to be a pretty interesting game. I think it might be close in the trenches, but I think they edge it. Um, on the road in Arrowhead, that's where the Chargers are really going to make it sting for the Chiefs. I think they have a chance to split with the Chiefs this year, beat them at their home turf to send a message to them. The Steelers, I kind of honestly see them losing to the Steelers because I just think in that environment and then what the look for for Russell Wilson and that defense is, I think they might end up, losing that one. They'll beat the Raiders in Vegas. I see them beating the Patriots on the road as well. Um, I see them beating the Panthers and the Falcons. And I also would say probably would be an interesting coin flip against the Cardinals because the Cardinals had a great draft. The Cardinals had by far a great draft, so it might be
100%.
interesting to see how they play up at. But I think on the road, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, I see them maybe potentially going. I see them maybe potentially going either 6-3 or 7-2 on the road. But to get to that point, they got to win in the trenches, and they really have to end up. They really have to end up showing up in a lot of these cases. But I think, yeah, 10-7 would be my ultimate record from there.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Snake Sports. You always welcome to come up into my live whenever. Thank you so much for the interview. And next time, it's just going to be some good football.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on, and for everybody up and into the chats as well. I just have my final thought to basically say about this because for a lot of people that are basically overlooking this Chargers team, the days of charging is over. You know that this team is hungry. They're destined for greatness. Justin Herbert is destined to be a lot better than what a lot of people seem to make him out to be. I've kept all my receipts. Emmanuel Acho. I've kept your receipt for years and years every time you kept clowning him when you talk about your Miami Dolphins. I've had my receipts on a bunch of other analysts as well. And I've had my receipts on one team in particular, the Kansas City Chiefs. You guys can go ahead and celebrate your back to back Super Bowl. But I'm going to tell you right now, the NFL is notorious for standing for not for long. So your reign of championships and your reign of greatness ain't going to last for long. You're going to be put up on notice. You're going to get punched in the mouth. You're going to get socked, and you're going to get ran. And we're going to wear you out. So go ahead, enjoy your celebrations, enjoy your championships, because this is not going to last for long. So the Chargers are going to put the Kansas City Chiefs up on notice. So get ready, Chiefs Kingdom, because we're coming for you.